Hailing from the great cold state of Alaska, I am the Frozen Gamer, and today I want to talk to you about Super Mario 64 as part of the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection on Nintendo Switch. Now, I had previously done a video talking about what I thought of the collection as a whole, whether or not I thought it was worthwhile, but now I want to get into the individual games, and I'm starting with Super Mario 64. Now, Super Mario 64 is one of those games that I really didn't play a whole lot growing up. Now, I was born in '87, so when Super Mario 64 came out, I was about 9 years old, but I didn't have a Nintendo 64. In fact, at that point, I didn't have a game console, period. The best I could do was play at friends' houses, and that was about it. And Super Mario 64 was not really something that interested me all that much. I thought it looked kind of cool, especially as the transition over to 3D, which at that time was more of a big deal. But it just wasn't something that necessarily appealed to me in the same way. And mostly just because I didn't really know exactly what I liked. I was still more into like fighting games and that sort of thing than anything else. And it wasn't really until after I actually got a Nintendo 64 when I was 12 that I finally started to be more interested in different types of games. And 64 was one of those games where when I finally actually got around to playing it, it was probably during like the GameCube era. That was about the time that I finally got around to it, and even then I just didn't really get much into it. Basically, like, I had borrowed a Nintendo 64 from someone because I had sold mine long before, and played it a bit, and just never really got into it. But then down the road, I got it a couple more times, and I finally decided, okay, I'm going to get it on the Wii U Virtual Console. I played a fair amount on there, and I probably had like 10, maybe 20 stars total in the game. Definitely abusing the save states and all of that, but the main thing was that it was just kind of something where I didn't really want to get too deep into it, especially because it was pretty much like right before the Switch was coming out. And I think it was like pretty much shortly after we had heard about the Switch, when we were still trying to figure out if there was going to be a virtual console or anything like that. But I didn't play it very much, just kind of thinking, okay, well, if there's going to be virtual console on Switch, I'll get it that way. And of course that didn't end up happening. And then they announced the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection 3 years later, and I ended up, I wanted to play. I wanted to give this game a real shot. I knew that being able to play it on the go, and as well as at home, would definitely make it a lot easier for me to get into the game and to really give it as much effort as I wanted to give it. So I did 100% this game. This is the first time I've ever done that, first time I ever even played the game extensively. And when I first got into Super Mario 64, really got into it, because the fact that I had my only real experience had been the limited amount I played on Wii U, I thought that it was going to be something I really, really enjoyed. And in the end, I enjoyed it. But I didn't really, really enjoy it. So, 64, as I've said in my previous video, is very dated. The camera is sometimes just infuriatingly bad. And I guess I should just say, I'm getting into the negative stuff first just to get it out of the way, so then I can talk about the positive stuff. And with the camera being so bad, sometimes it makes it really difficult to find certain things, getting to certain red coins, getting the 100% on, getting the 100 coins in a level, things of that nature. The wall jumping, which at that point was just called a wall kick, is pretty terrible. Now, I'm sure that there are people who are experts at it who can get it perfect every single time. I'm not one of those people. Let me just put it simple. And if you compare it to the later games, which I tried my best not to, but at the same time, Odyssey was the only one I had really extensively played before this. The wall jumping is just horrible in this game. And it really makes some things difficult. There's one level in particular, the Rainbow Cruise, in which getting 100 coins, I think that was probably the one that I took the longest break on in between, because in order to get the 100 coins, you basically have to get as many blue coins as possible. The thing is that the blue coins in this game, I mean, because they're worth 5 coins apiece. But in order to get them, you have to hit a switch, and you have to jump up a series of walls to get up there, and this is timed after you hit the switch, and then try to collect them as quickly as possible. The problem is that if you mess up at all on the wall jumping, which I did consistently, I consistently messed up, then you pretty much have to restart the entire level. You cannot get 100 coins, or at least it's a lot more difficult without that. And so then there would be times where like I got up to like 94 coins, I got pretty much all of the blue coins, and then I fell off the map. Really? Really? And a large part was because of that wall jump. Now, I recognize that once again, I'm basically a newbie to this. I'm going to a game that's 25 years old as of this year, and trying to get into it after all this time, and it's something where it's hard to get into because of things like that. The triple jump I had issues with. Just sometimes I felt like the button presses were not as precise as they should be. Like it felt like there was just maybe the tiniest bit of input lag. Maybe that's not the issue. I'm not entirely sure if it's actually input lag or if it's just lack of skill or what it is. But for someone who is coming into this game brand new, basically, you have to recognize that there are going to be some frustrations with those aspects of the controls. However, and this is where I wanted to get into the good things about this game, there is just something special about Super Mario 64. Some stuff in this game that just really makes it stand out, and you recognize why it is that it's still so beloved to this day. Why it is that after all this time, people can come back to this game and still find something to appreciate about it. And I was definitely one of those people. I found that this game was actually really enjoyable. It wasn't as good. I mean, it's nowhere near as good as later games, of course, but keep in mind that apart from having played Super Mario Odyssey, in which case I think I got like 600 moons or something like that, and that was a few years ago, I had never really played any of the other 3D Mario games. And so playing Super Mario 64, I thought, okay, my skills should transfer over reasonably well. It's only 120 stars. How bad could it be? And there were definitely times where it was like really satisfying. You know, you get all of the stars in a level. You're like, okay, there we go. That level's done. Now I can move on to the next one. And then you come across one that's just really frustrating because the controls are just not as smooth as you would like. And there are times where the camera just really gets in the way. But even still, I kept finding myself coming back to it. I kept finding myself continuing to try it. And maybe part of it was just that I wanted to get to both Sunshine and Galaxy in the collection because I knew that there had to be some improvements, even if I didn't necessarily like them as much in the end, which, of course, if you watch my previous video, you'll know that I did enjoy them. But it still was something where, like, the levels all felt unique and all felt special. Now, I guess I should say, some levels kind of feel almost carbon copy-ish of other ones, but there's very few examples of that. It felt like, for the most part, all of the levels really had their own unique flair. And yes, there are definitely aspects where you feel like, okay, this is just... it's so dated. I mean, you can tell, very basic geometry used for different structures, the pyramids and the basic blocks and things like that. And sometimes it just feels like, okay. But then you remember, this is essentially the first 3D platformer. And the kind of things that it did that ultimately carried over to not just later Mario games, but 3D games in general, 3D platformers and all of that, just kind of learning, Nintendo basically kind of pioneering in some ways to help figure out how to make these games transfer from 2D over to 3D. And as you get more into the different levels, there are some levels where you'll find yourself having a lot of trouble, and then there are other levels where it's just a joy to play them. And then occasionally you'll just kind of get like a breath of fresh air where you have a level that there's no like no way for you to fall off the map. And when that comes, it's just like, thank you, God. Thank you for giving me a level where I finally have a little bit of relief from that. If I fall, I just land in the water and I can get back up and try again. But then there's other times where, you know, you'll make one tiny error in your jump or miss a wall kick or something like that, and then you fall off to your death and then have to start the whole thing over again. And one of the things that I ended up doing as I played this game was pretty much every level I would try to go for the red coins and the 100 coins on one run. Because unlike in Super Mario Odyssey, in 64 as well as the subsequent games, you can only get basically 1 star per level. The only exception to that is the 100 coin star, which once you get that, you can save while you're still in the level and then still pick up a 2nd star. And personally, that's what I recommend doing if you decide to play this and actually try to go for the 100 coin stars and everything else. Go for that 100 coins first. Go for the red coins first, and that way you don't have to worry about it later on, and you can just focus on completing the other tasks. But the more I played it, the more I just kind of found that there's a lot of variety there. There's a lot of different ways to do things, and I've seen some of the people who actually do speed running, and just like the insane ways that they're able to just make everything work so well, and it's so impressive. And I just look at myself struggling to do a single wall kick, or, you know, struggling to do a side somersault, and, you know, basically having to stop, crouch to do a backflip to get up onto the high portions. Or, you know, in the clock level, I can't remember what the name of the level was, where basically to get the 100 coins, there's one point where you have to do a wall kick off a wall to get up to a platform that you can't actually see, but's up there, so that you can get to some other coins, and that way you can actually finish out getting all the coins you need for that 100 coin star. But yeah, the other thing is that with this game, the music is just really good. I mean, occasionally, yeah, there are tunes that get repeated, and some of them get a little older than others. But for the most part, like, the different level themes are just really, really good. My favorites, without question, definitely the Jolly Roger Bay, which I can't remember, Dry Docks is what it's also called. That one is probably my favorite. I also really like the Bowser and the Bowser Path song. I can't remember. I think it's called Koopa's Path is the name of the song on the 64 soundtrack that's included with 3D All-Stars. And just some of these tracks are really, really good to listen to, and really add to the game. And I wanted to get as much of that as I could, just so that way I could find myself able to appreciate all of this a lot more. But all of that being said, my thoughts are kind of all over the place, because obviously this is not scripted, but Super Mario 64 is still a game that's worth playing today. Now, if you are viewing this after the 3D All-Stars collection is no longer available, you know, who knows if this is going to come, if they're going to bring it like through the Nintendo Online service in a different form, or just make it possible to purchase on its own. How much it's worth it, I think, really just kind of depends on how much you're willing to potentially put up with an old game just to experience how it feels, because I think it's still worth playing now today. I think it still has a lot to offer, and it just really kind of, especially if you've played any of the later Mario games, it really helps you to appreciate the improvements that were made as time went on, and the ways in which they really evolved the games. And I still think that as a 3D Mario game, I mean, yeah, it's the most basic. It's definitely my least favorite of all the ones I've played, which I think the only one I haven't played now is Galaxy 2, but it still, I think, is worth playing. Now, getting that 120 stars, I think it just depends on how much you are willing to put up with. Personally, I was willing to put in the effort because I had basically held off on doing that for so long. And I just felt like I need to do this to feel like I really gave this game its fair chance. And I mean, it's only 120 stars. It's not the 999 moons that you get in Super Mario Odyssey, which to this day, I still haven't gotten more than, I think, like 600 something moons, maybe. Although eventually I do want to go back and finish all of that, but I still think it's worth playing, and I definitely think you should give it a try if you are someone who is willing to potentially buy the 3D All-Stars collection. But even if you're not, I mean, even if you don't want it for that game, and I don't think you should buy the collection if all you want is 64, but definitely it's worthwhile to try. Just give it a little bit of a try. Play through the first level that they give you, which is Bob-omb Battlefield, and just see what you think of it. I mean, even if you play through just the first star, if you get this collection, still give 64 a chance. Whether you decide to actually go through the effort of getting all 120 stars, or you just decide to, you know, get the bare minimum, which I don't even know what that is because I had all but 1 star when I went to face Bowser the 3rd time on the, you know, for the last fight. And I mean, all you get at the end of it is basically you're able to go on top of the castle and you see Yoshi and he gives you 100 lives. And those 100 lives don't stay with you once you close out the game and reset it. So it's great if you want to go back and finish any, well, actually I guess at that point you would have already finished all the stars, but if you want to go back and play some more, then by all means, you know, you got 100 lives to work with, or 99. But otherwise, I still think it's worth checking out. I think it's worth playing. And, yeah, that's my thoughts. So let me know down in the comments below what you think of Super Mario 64, particularly the Switch version. So one thing I do want to point out is that I played the game almost exclusively in handheld mode. I played some on the TV with Pro Controller. It controls about the same either way. It really doesn't make a significant difference that I noticed. I mean, yeah, of course, obviously the Pro Controller is bigger, feels better, but for the game, it really doesn't make much difference. So you can play however you want. I'm sure split Joy-Cons work fine. I didn't try that, but in general, I find split Joy-Cons work well for me as well. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you are interested in playing the game, I hope that that you give it a shot. And if not, then don't give it a shot. But whatever works for you. Until next time, this has been The Frozen Gamer, and I will talk to you later. Take care.